to Daf Vav Amid Beis. The Gemara says the following. I'm going to defend Rav Bar Pod. And again, we're going to go through the following methodology. We're going to look at the Sefer, and we're going to prove Bar Pada based on the Sefer, and that's going to shed a light on the ratio. Amalcha Bar Pada. Amos Sefer. Let's take a look at the end of the Mishnah. Rabbi Eliezer Omer, Eino Soser Ela Shiva. This is exactly Bar Pada. Why? Because he already completed his Nazirus on which day? Day 29. He's now in day 30. Now he has a problem. He can't bring his karbanos because he had contact with a dead body. So let's wait 7 days, and now he'll bring his karbanos after the Azov, Yom Shlishi, and Shvi, after the 7-day period for the Nazirus that he completed in 29 days. But if you're going to maintain like Rav Masna that Shloshin B'ina, we need a full 30 days of Nazirus, Nistar Kulu, then how could Rabbi Eliezer possibly say that he has fulfilled his Nazirus, will wait until he undergoes Tara, 7 days will postpone his Karbonos, and then he'll bring his Karbonos at the end of the 7 days? That's impossible. How could Rabbi Eliezer entertain the possibility that he has completed his Nazirus on day 30? What do you mean completed his Nazirus on day 30? He was tummy on day 30. Right? Nitma Yom Shloshim is Rabbi Eliezer says that Eino Soso L'Shiva. Now, and again, here the Mefarshim are going to say, well, maybe Bar Pada is basing himself on Rabbi Eliezer, but maybe Rav Masna can base himself on the Rabbanan. After all, the Rabbanan say in this very same Mishnah that Soser, what's the language? Soser Sakol. So Tosas asks this question, and he says the following. The machlokes here between the Rabbanan and Rabbi Eliezer is going to be explained in the next line. Kasava Rabbi Eliezer mitzas hayom kikula. The Gemara is giving us a clue, an insight, according to Rav Masna, as to the Yesod HaPlugta, the basic machlokes here between the Chacham and Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer is willing to accept Miksayon Kekulo. Therefore, if he contracts Tumah on day 30, after having observed his Nazirus in the morning of day 30, he's already completed his Nazirus. He has a problem bringing his Karbanos, we'll wait a week. The Rabbanan, on the other hand, never accepted Miksayon Kekulo. And therefore, if they didn't accept Miksayon Kekulo, then if he sees Tumah, if he has a contact with Tumah on day 30, that's Soser his entire Nazirus, because Stam Nazirus Shloshim Yom. And I'll just read to you a few lines here from the note. In the name of the Rosh, he says that there are two ways of interpreting the word Soser in the Mishnah Daf Tezayin. One is that he completely undermines the entire Nazirus, he has to start from scratch. And the other is, no, he wasn't Soser the entire Minyan HaYomim, but rather he was Soser his ability to terminate his Nazirus by bringing his Karbanos, and he's going to have to extend his Nazirus for another 7 days. So really, the word Soser here, in the context of Rabbi Eliezer, is not appropriate, so to speak. It doesn't fit. But we're borrowing the word Soser from the Chacham, because the Chacham say that when he comes in contact with Tumah, he's got to start his Nazirus from scratch. V'tzarech li'toyer kodem shemevi karbanos. He cannot bring his karbanos until he's mitayr himself. So Rabbeinu Peretz asked the following question. We have a basic principle in karbanos that a Tame sholech karbanos of al yidei acher. Okay, so the Nazir himself can't bring his karbanos personally. Let him appoint a shliach, and the shliach who's tar will bring his karbanos. Rabbeinu Peretz says the following: "B'Nazir ksiv." In the parsha Naso, it says "V'nosan al kapei hakohen," that there has to be a personal process of tahara on the kapei hakohen, and therefore tzarich hu biatzmo lahavias karbon. Tanan, we learned in the Mishnah. Now, the Gemara is going to ask a kasha on Rabbi Eliezer. So we've moved on now from the machlokes between Rav Masna and Bar Pada to a study of the Shita Rabbi Eliezer. And the Gemara is now going to try to prove that Rabbi Eliezer doesn't fit into any Shita that we know of. Tanan, Hareini Nazir Mea Yom. He accepts upon himself an Nazirus of 100 days. And Nitma Yom Mea, on the 100th day, he contracted Tumah. Soseris Hakol. This makes sense. If the Rabbanan never accepted Miksa Yom Kekulo, he needs to observe the entire 100th day to complete his Nazirus, which he didn't do because he contracted Tumah on day number 100. Rabbi Eliezer Omer, Eino Soser El Shloshim Yom. Rabbi Eliezer is going to operate with the principle of Miksas Hayom Kekulo. And therefore, on day 100 in the morning, he observed his Nazirus, and that's Kekulo, as if he observed the entire day as a Nazir. And the Gemara says, the Mishnah says, Eina Sosel Shloshim Yom. What's Shloshim Yom? Mimonefsham. If you're going to say that Rabbi Eliezer accepted Miksayom Kikulo, which is exactly the way we interpret Rabbi Eliezer based on Rav Masna, then it's Tashiva. The Mishnah should have said that according to Rabbi Eliezer, he's got to just postpone the Karbanos for 7 days. But already the 100th day counts as Hashlomis is Nazirus because Miksayom Kikulo. The low sover Miksayom Kikulo, if we're going to go with the sheet of Bar Pada, and Rabbi Eliezer rejected Miktayom Kekulo, is Listar Kulo. He accepted upon himself a full-fledged 100-day Nazirus, and he never completed his 100th day. So when he became Tomei on day number 100, he was Soser his entire Nazirus. As we say in Yiddish, where did Shloshim Yom fly in from? Li'olam lo amrina Miktayom Kekulo. The Gemara now is going to interpret Rabbi Eliezer in the light of our Pada. We never accepted, Rabbi Eliezer never accepted Miksayom Kekulo. So the Gemara asks, Iachi Lista Kulu. So if so, he needs to observe the entire 100th day, which he did not do. And therefore, his whole Nazirus from scratch, from beginning, should be completely on the mind. And that's called Stira B'Kulu. Omreish Lakish, Hainu Taimed Rabbi Eliezer. What's the logic and the source of Rabbi Eliezer of this Shloshim Yom? It's not here and it's not there. Because the pasuk says, Vizos Toras HaNazir. There's something called Toras HaNazir. It's the title of a book called Toras HaNazir, written by Rav Yitzchak Hutman. Anyway, Toras HaNazir. Zos Toras HaNazir. Biyom Molos Yemei Nizra. And the Torah goes on to say that he has to bring his 3 behemos, his 3 karbonos. HaTorah Omra, Nitma Biyom Molos, Teilo Toras Nazir. Now, Toras Nazir means Shloshim Yom. And if he was Nitma on the day of his Molos, and that's what the Torah is emphasizing with the words Biyom Molos, that Biyom Molos, he contracted Tumah, then Toras Nazir, Tein Toras Nazir, give him another Nazirus. So again, logically, we would have said that if he contracted Tumah on day 100, then the whole Nazirus falls apart. What we call Ayomim Harishonim Yiplu. And he's got to start from the get-go. But because the Torah says those Torahs, the Torah is referring to an entity called 30 days of Nazirus. And 30 days of Nazirus is all that the Torah is requiring in a case where he contracted Tumah. Now, again, if it was a Stam Nazirus of Shloshim Yom, then it's basically equal to saying that the entire Nazirus was completely scrapped, because he's going to have to start the 30 days all over again. But if we're holding now that he accepted upon himself 100 days of Nazirus, the Torah is teaching me an unbelievable chiddush that even though he's metami himself on day 100, and he never observed day 100, and again, we're holding now that there's no din of miksayom kekul like Barpada, the Torah says all he has to do is observe Torah's Nazir. I see here in the Mefarshim, they work very hard to try to figure out what this is, but at the end of the day, it's simply what we call Gzeras HaKos. Lema Ketanoi, the Gemara wants to suggest that perhaps Rav Masna and Barpada are really arguing about, right, these are two Amoraim, are arguing about a Machlokes Tanoim. And this Machlokes Tanoim is recorded in a Brisa, and the Machlokes is about how to interpret three words in the Pasuk in Naso. And the Pasuk reads in its entirety, Kol Yemei Neder, Nizro Tar Lo Yavar Al Rosho Ad Malos Hayomim Asher Yazil Hashem. What do those words Ad Malos Hayomim mean? And here we're going to see a machlokes between Rabbi Yoshia and Rabbi Yonas on two Tanoim. We'll start with the opinion of Rabbi Yoshia. Rabbi Yoshia says the following, an amazing shita that we've never encountered. He said the following, that when the Torah is telling the Nazir that he has to observe his Nazirus ad malos hayomim, so Shom'eni, I would think, what's yomim? Ein miyut yomim el shnayim. Right? Whenever you see a plural word, you assume it's two. Otherwise, the Torah would have said it's more than two. So yomim means 2 days. And that would mean that if a person accepted upon himself stam Nazirus, he will observe Nazirus for 2 days. I'm in. Talmud Lomar, but the Torah says, Kadosh Yiyeh. Now look at the word Yiyeh. The word Yiyeh is a gematria of 30, as we know. Kadosh Yiyeh Gadel Pera. The Ein Gidul Seir Pachos Mishloshim Yom. And since the Torah says Gadel Pera Yiyeh, Yiyeh means 30, he needs a minimum of 30 days of Nazirus. It's exactly the Shita of Barpada, of Rav Masna. Rabbi Yonasan Omer, Einot Tzara. You don't have to dash in the Kadosh Yiyeh. You don't have to come up with this new chiddush of Yiyeh in order to lafuke 2 days of Nazirus. No. Hareu Omer, Ad Malos Hayomim. Okay, there's a concept called, in the biblical Hebrew, Malos Hayomim. What does it mean? So we're talking about something called Malos Hayom. What's Malos Hayomim? So at this point, Rabbi Yonasan is going to introduce the mitzvah of last week's parsha, HaChodesh Zelachem Rosh Chodashim, and at the time of Kiddush Al Pi Re'iyah, and even after Hillel Hasheni established the calendar, there's 1 month that's 29, that's called Chaser, and 1 month that's 30 days, that's called Mole. And Malos Hayomim, says Rabbi Yonasan, means to be Mamale a month that's Chaser. We add another month, that's called a Chodesh Me'ubar. And by adding that 30th day, we are mashlim the malos of Yomim. So in a perfect calendar, in a perfect month, there would be 30 days in a month, and the malos is on day 30. The eluhem yomim shetzrichem limalos. What are these days that have to be malos? Have yom shloshim. It means we take a month that could be chaser, it would only have 29 days. And malos hachodesh we're going to add a 30th day. So day 30 is called Shloshim. My love, Rav Masne, the Omar Kirab Oshia. This is beautiful. Rabbi Oshia was the one who took the word year and derived that Naziris requires 30 days from the gematria of year. Smooth. But Bar Pada, the Omar Rabbi Yonasan. Now, what does this mean, Bar Pada, the Omar Rabbi Yonasan? Bar Pada was the one who said that Stam Naziris is 29 days. And Rabbi Yonasan said that when it says in the Pasuk, Ad Malos Hayamim, it's referring to day 30. So how does that jive? How do we reconcile, as the Gemara wants to do, Bar Pada with Rabbi Yonasan? He's using the concept of Malos Hayamim to refer to day 30. If it's referring to day 30, that's not Bar Pada. Bar Pada says Stam Nazir is 29 days. But the answer lies in the pasuk itself. Let's read the pasuk. The pasuk says that Ad Malos Hayomim Asher Yazul Hashem, and then he brings his karbanos. When does he bring his karbanos? The Torah is saying Malos Hayomim. Malos Hayomim is day 30. That fits beautifully and reflects the sheet of Bar Pada, because according to Bar Pada, that's indeed when he should be bringing his karbanos. Again, not in the case of when he adds the word shlemim or midrabanan, we're afraid that it might be shlemim. But in a pure, ideal doraisa, 29 days of Naziris, and then on day 30, he will bring his karbanos. When is day 30? That's called Yom Malo. That's called Ad Malos Hayom. And now, in typical style, the Gemara is going to try to see if we can free Rav Masna of the bounds of tying him up to Rav Oshia. Rav Masna, you know what? I can assume my sheet of Shloshim Yom even according to Rav Oshia. And not only that, Kuli Alma Shloshim Be'inon. I'm sorry, even according to Rabbi Yonasan. And that means that even Rabbi Yonasan will require Shloshim Yom. But what's the machlokas here? When the Torah says, Ad Malos Hayomim, how do we interpret the word Ad? We're familiar with Mishnayos and with various Gemaras, Ad, V'ad B'chlal, Ad V'lo Ad B'chlal. Here we have a very unique encounter with Ad in the Torah itself. What did the Torah mean when it said Ad Malos Hayomim? Says the Gemara, that's exactly according to Rav Masna, the machlokas here between Rav Yoshia and Rav Yonasan. Hocha bi'ad, v'ad b'chlal pligi. Rav Yoshia sover ad v'lo ad b'chlal, which means that when the Torah is talking about Malos Hayomim, it includes the 30th day as part of the Naziris. So ad means Malos Hayom included. Rav Yonasan sover ad v'ad b'chlal. That the Yom, so let's go over it again. Rabbi Yoshia Savar Ad Velad Bichlal. So what does that mean? That if the Torah is saying Ad Malos Hayomim, year, and year means 30, so then the Ad Malos Hayomim is Ad Velad Bichlal, meaning day 30 is not beyond the Naziris, but rather it's included in the Naziris. So therefore, Rav Masna understands that according to Rav Yoshia, certainly, and this is the way we understood it earlier, Stam Naziris year is 30 days. If we only had Ad Malos, then applying the principle of Ad V'lo Ad B'chlal, if Ad V'lo Ad B'chlal, then Ad Malos in and of itself, without the word year, would not include the 30th day itself. So the 30th day would not be within the framework of Nazirus, but rather outside the framework of Nazirus. By what method can we take the 30th day of Ad Malos, Ad V'lo Ad B'chlal, and incorporate it into the body of Nazirus to arrive at the conclusion that Stam Nazir Shloshim Yom, For that, I need the gematria of year. Rav Yoshia, on the other hand, so that was Rav Yoshia. Rav Yonasan, on the other hand, Savar, ad v'ad bechal. He doesn't need year. He doesn't need the gematria of 30. He could derive it from Yom Malos, because he holds when the Torah says ad Yom Malos, it means the ad v'ad bechal, which means that the 30th day is included in the Naziris. Now the Gemara says, how do you know that Yom Malos, that was Rav Yonasan, means the 30th day of the month, meaning the day in which a month becomes a mole? So the Gemara says, Omar Mari Eluhem Yom Shetzich Lamalos Have Yom Shloshim Yom Ema Shabbos. Maybe when the Torah is talking about Malos, it means count 6 days, and the 7th day is going to be the Malos. So all 6 days are leading up to the Shabbos, which is the Malos, and completes that entity called a week. The Gemara says, Shabbos Mika Chasirusa. You could only talk about a Malos when there are 2 options. Like, for example, in Chodesh, you have an option of a Chaser and an option of a Mole, 29 or 30. Then the word Malos means 30. But in the case of Shabbos, Shabbos is always, without an exception, on day number 7. And now we turn to Daf Zayin. V'ema Shona. Maybe we could say that the Nazir Stam should be a full year. And where do we find that the word Malos could refer to an entire year, not just to the day number 30? And the answer is because a year could also shift in its number. And there are certain years that have Shin Nun Gimel, right? Shin Nun Gimel. Again, why only Shin Nun Gimel? That's because, right, 363 instead of 365, that's if Cheshvan and Kislev are both Chaserim. And then you could have a year in which both Cheshvan and Kislev are Maleim, and you have a full year of 365. So a year has its Ashlam as well. The answer is, Mima Nina Liyome. Right? What does the Pasuk says? We go back to our Pasuk, and it says Kodesh Year, etc., etc., and it says Ad Malos Hayamin. Now the question is, do we count days in order to get a year? And the Gemara says, Mi Baninan Liyomi. We never count days of a year. And how do I know this? For Abona de Kesari, Amri Minayin Shein Monim Yom L'Shanim. How do we know that we don't count days in order to make up the difference between the lunar and the solar calendar, but rather after 3 years go by, then we'll add a full month. But on an annual basis, we're not going to count and see whether or not the 2 months of Cheshvan and Kislev are Mole or Chaser. Do we have to add days to the year? We never add days to a year. We only add a month to a year, every 3 years or so. Shenemar, and this, how do we know that we don't add to a year, but we only add a month as a Chodesh Ibur every so often, every couple of years? Shenemar, in the Parsha of Kiddush HaChodesh, the Torah says, Lechodshei Hashana. And what does it mean, Lechodshei Hashana? As we read yesterday, it means Chadoshim Mechashvim Lishonim. Right? We calculate months in order to complete the year. And that's going to be Adar Sheni and Shana Muberes. Below Yomim Lishonim, but we don't count days to complete a year. And this leads us in Mirz Hashem to the Mishnah here on Daf Zayin, which we'll pick up.
Stop the recording. I have a couple of questions.
Okay. I like to keep it recording. I mean,
okay. Keep the recording.
No, but I mean, unless it's
questions are not
something private.
Worthy. Go ahead, John.
Sorry, hi. Thank you so much, Rabbi. It seems like there's a steer on Rabbi Eliezer on at first, at the end, it said he doesn't hold that Michsas Yom Kekulo. So that's why a guy who became Metame on day 100 would have to do at least 30. But the guy who became Tame on day 30, why did he only have to do 7? If the Rabbi Eliezer doesn't hold from Michsas Yom Kekulo, he should forfeit his whole Naziros.
Here, let's start again. It says Rabbi Eliezer Omer Eino Soser Elo Shiva, correct?
No, I'm going on the Rabbi Eliezer that said at the end.
I want to go through both statements of Rabbi Eliezer. We'll see if you're right, and there seems to be a contradiction. So again, a person said Hareini Nazir, and he was Nitma on day 30. So Rabbi Eliezer says Eino Soser Elo Shiva. So the Gemara says Kasavar. Rabbi Eliezer Miktsas Hayom Kikula. Rabbi Eliezer maintains that he has already completed his Nazirus on day 30 in the morning. And the Gemara is now saying that even though Rav Masna normally requires a full 30 days, but the exceptions to the rule is going to be Miktsas Hayom Kikulo, and that's exactly Rabbi Eliezer. Now we go on to the next Mishnah. And Rabbi Eliezer says that if he saw Tumah, he contracted Tumah on day 100, then according to Rabbi Eliezer, he has a din of Shloshim Yom. So the Gemara says, Mimanavsham. If Rabbi Eliezer mixes Hayom Kekulo, then let him postpone for 7 days. If Rabbi Eliezer does not hold Mix Hayom Kekulo, in other words, if he holds like Bar Pada, until now we've explained Rabbi Eliezer based on Rav Masna, but if you want to explain Rabbi Eliezer according to Bar Pada, which means that we don't have a din of stira because Stam Nazirus is 29 days, which he already passed 29 days, and he only contracted Tumah on day 30. So that's the simple way of understanding Rabbi Eliezer, and he doesn't accept Mitzayom Kekulo. Is then Lister Kulo, if he came in contact with Tumah on day 100, he's got to start from scratch. So what is Gemara answer? Li'olam lo amrina mixes hayom kekulo. In other words, we're going to take the interpretation of Rabbi Eliezer the way Bar Pada explained Rabbi Eliezer. Why is the Gemara taking Bar Pada's explanation of Rabbi Eliezer? And the answer is because Rabbi Eliezer is now saying that after he finished his 29th day and now he's in day 30, there's no din of stira. He'll only postpone the korbanos for 7 days till he's mitayr himself. So therefore, lo amrina mixes hayom kekulo. So now we're stuck with day 100. What do we do with day 100? So the answer is, that's where Reish Lakish quotes the pasuk of Vizos Toras HaNazir, that on the day that he completes his Nazirus, he goes through Toras HaNazir, another 30 days. Why should he go through another 30 days on the day that he completes his Nazirus? Shalom al Yisrael, he finished his Nazirus. And the answer is because Nitma B'yom Malos, because on that day in which he would have completed his Nazirus, he was still observing his Nazirus. He was still within the framework of his Nazirus. So why doesn't he start from scratch? And what's the 30 days? And the Gemara answers, Tein lo Toras Nazir. The Torah says that in such a case where he's Nitma and there was a stira, then he will have to observe 30 days, which is Stam Nazirus. Again, Stam Nazirus, according to Rav Pada, would mean when he added the word Shlema, but when he said Hareini Nazir, Shlema b'Shlemus, that's 30 days. And the Torah, when it says Torah's Nazir, is referring specifically to Nazir b'Shlemus. Nazir b'Shlemus means 30 days, which is very fascinating in and of itself, because what it means that even though Bar Pada has Nazirus at 29 days, but he still understands that a broader Nazirus would include also day 30. He says, Bar Pada, now we're up to Bar Pada, Stam Nazirus Esrim Utisha Yom, Sarchu Listar Shloshim Yom. Right, as I said before, why is Torah's Nazir, according to Bar Pada, interpreted as a full 30 days? It should be interpreted as 29 days. He says, Keva Sha'af Shemona Esrim Utisha Yemei Nazirus, Afal Pichen. Even so, there's such an entity called Nazirus of 30 days. I'm not sure exactly what he means by Stam Nazirus. I think he means when he added the word Shlemus.
Sorry, Rabbi, we have to daven. I have to go daven. I'm sorry to interrupt.
V'hu adin im kibel Nazirus. Where's Rabbi Rhodes? V'hu adin im kibel Nazirus shloshim yom. He accepted upon himself Nazirus of 30 days. V'nitme b'yom shloshim. Shu yom hashlomas Naziruso. Yeah, so I don't understand. He's going to anyway have to observe 30 days. Let's see. He says, Libar pada lefi divrei Rabbi Eliezer choser monu michadash Toras Nazir. According to our Papa, in a case where he accepted upon himself Nazir Shleim of 30 days, and now he became Tami on Yom Shloshim, so now he's going to have to start Nazirus all over again, and he's going to have to count 29 days. Because again, even though he accepted upon himself Nazirus of Shloshim Yom, but nevertheless, after he became Tami on day 30, he only has to go and observe Toras Nazir. And what's Toras Nazir? Toras Nazir is, according to Bar Pada, 29 days. So it's really fascinating that he goes down from 30 to 29, because he accepted upon himself 30, but now he only has to observe 29. However, midrabanan, we wait until day 31.